Oh, there you go. To the
Hi,
left.
folks. Friday afternoon. Ted Ralston here with an incredible crowd at our show. We're the drone leads here at ThinkTech Hawaii on the 8th floor of the Pioneer Plaza building overlooking Honolulu. And as you can see on the table here, as you know, this show is known by the people it brings on. It's actually known by the hardware it brings on as well. We've got more airplanes in this studio today than there are at Honolulu Airport. And as you can see, this incredibly complex and quite beautiful, frankly, drones sitting on our table here. And we got a few more in the sides that will be coming out at break time. But just to put you at ease and thinking from a safety perspective, today at lunchtime, our engineering department, Zuri and Nick and Jay, went downstairs and bolted the building more firmly to the ground. So in case any of these things start up, we won't fly the studio out of here.
Good.
Anyway, we're the drone leads. This episode is it might lead to a rescue near you sometime. In fact, you could be the actual beneficiary of a rescue done by drone or assisted by drone in some way. So let me introduce, first of all, our drone, Firefly 6. Welcome aboard Firefly 6, first time on the show. Firefly 6, owned by Mike Elliott.
Yeah, so it's a company purchase for us from Bird's Eye View Aerobotics. I want to thank Adam and the entire crew out there. Incredible platform, great people to work with, and definitely a platform of choice the way that they're building this. So this is actually a VTOL design, which actually will take off vertically and transition into horizontal flight. So you get the benefit of a wing design for payload and flight time, but the ease and maybe minimalized area that you would normally want a vertical takeoff or normal quadcopter type of drone.
That's cool.
Best of both worlds.
And Mike, you are Drone Services Hawaii, and this particular piece of equipment is available to people who want to hire your services for whatever they may want.
Right. So we've added this to our COA amendment along with 325 other drones. Most recently, this just arrived yesterday, so we still have to do N number application for it, and it has not had initial flight yet. But we're going to do some fun testing here shortly. And,
that's great. It arrived yesterday, and today it's on the TV show. That's exactly how it should be. Let me introduce Ken Lesperance again. Ken was joining us for the first time this time, and long service in search and rescue and other forms of public safety. And Ken, we'd like to get your knowledge and information as the show progresses here on how this kind of equipment can be put to use in disaster operations in general, but in the search and rescue function, which is certainly the most human interest aspect of disaster operations.
Absolutely.
Say a little bit about what this means to you, seeing this thing here on the table.
The technology's taken off so much in the last few years, and this, when I saw this, some of the capabilities is very exciting. In a disaster, there's a lot of different functions going on, and this can probably cover 3 or 4 of those all the time.
So what we got to do is we got to walk out of here today with an idea of how to take Mike's new equipment into the disaster world and do some experimentation and some application testing right here in the Ko'olaus and other areas that are unique to Hawaii.
So Eric, one of the great guys I've known for actually quite some time before he even started working with Bird's Eye View, has been doing a lot of testing. They're looking at FLIR IR integration. They've also been doing the multispectral integration and stuff so that you can do multispectral maps, whether it's for agriculture. Once again, these can assist in disaster relief, looking through the various spectrums of light through flight and then being able to analyze those post-mission to provide whether it's maps or, hey, where do we need to go or what's out there?
And this is all so new to the world of disaster operations. It's never had this sort of thing before. So now we turn to Eric Yamashita, or Yamashita as he sometimes says when he's not sure who he is. And Eric works at NDPTC, National Disaster Preparedness Training Center. I got it figured out now, right down the street from us here. And his role is developing training programs for disaster operations, disaster management, and this sort of thing. So, Eric, this is the sort of thing that we've got to fold into the emerging training rituals and such, and so we have a sort of a double whammy for you. Not only is it new to the responders, it's new to the people doing the training as well.
Yeah, yes.
So give us your words of wisdom about how we're going to move forward in this kind of a area.
Well, right now we're building, as you know, we're building several series of courses. First course is primarily dealing with the legalities with the FAA, but our next course is on flight operations, and we're trying to integrate some of the actual new technology within these courses. Our consortium is tied to search and rescue, first responders, and other activities with emergency management.
And so what's happening here is this type of technology is emerging so fast that the training regimen has to keep abreast of that. So I think we have an obligation, Mike, to keep Eric up to speed on what's happening out there in the world of this type of technology, so he can crank it into the training programs and such.
Definitely. I mean, what's available? What's the life cycle cost? Training. And some of these platforms they're getting easier and easier to operate. These guys did a great job with modification of software. That's a very common mission planner software, but have one that is extremely simple to operate and covers the full range of function of flight for this particular design, and almost to the point of where it's almost completely automated in putting out all the waypoints, the altitudes you want to fly, the transition of flight, the retraction and lowering of landing gear. All those elements are built into this to make it simple to fly.
And that's really important, especially in the world of the people you interact with, which is the people who are out there doing disaster operations today. We can't ask them to pick up a whole new training concept of some complex aerodynamic thing they have to manage. We've got to make it cell phone simple, so that it simply responds to key inputs. And I was equally impressed as you were, Mike. Margie and I were in New Hampshire at an NDPTC oriented conference, as a matter of fact, back in January. 20 degrees or 10 or something like that outside, and that's Fahrenheit, so I mean that's really cold. And when the pictures show snow on the ground, we could prove it was cold. And Eric had, a different Eric, had one of these out at the testing field, and we got a chance to fly it. And like you say, it's like very simple. You don't have to worry about the transition from powered lift to wing-borne lift. It was just fly the thing, just point and shoot like a camera. So
very
things
much
are
so.
heading in that direction, and that's something that is going to get more accelerated as time goes on. And just if you think back,
that's what we're working on too with our Pro Search design,
which
which
we're
we
gonna
have,
see
which
after-
we'll show
after the
later
break, right?
and stuff. Some of the same concepts. What was it that was needed by the search and rescue community, fire department, police? What was it that they really needed? Because what they were doing was taking existing hobbyist platforms and trying to make them into something that they really weren't and didn't have the full functionality that they really needed. So we went from the ground up and built something all the way from the platform, the sensors that we have on there, to basically help to answer those needs for those communities.
so this is the first generation of unmanned air vehicles that have really begun to respond to the user's requirements. And as opposed to adapting model airplanes into this mission, this is the first of that purpose-designed system.
I believe so. I mean, I've been following these for quite some time, and like I said, I know Eric, and he's up there now on staff with them. They just completed their first 1,000-hour flight testing with, zero problems, no parts had to be replaced. And he's out there sending out mission logs from time to time, and this thing just going to town around and around and around without any problems. So, they've built a reliable platform.
That's another good point. The long duration and long lasting and reliability equivalent to what we're used to in survey equipment, for example, or other emergency response equipment. We have to get these systems up to that level so they don't take any more special attention than anything else does in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
So Ken, how would we think about putting together an exercise, starting simple and moving to the more complex things? We don't want to go up in a coal lounge right up front here. But
there's two main types of search and rescue that I see the application: the disaster search and rescue, and then the wilderness search and rescue. And they have some similarities. If we want to start, I would definitely suggest we start with the wilderness search and rescue, because that's a very active. It's more active. We get a lot more search and rescue missions. And with our Ko'olau Mountains, this particular drone would be very beneficial, because firefighters and other rescuers can't get to a lot of remote areas. You can't even get a helicopter into a lot of places. And there's absolutely no way to do it with dogs or ropes or anything like that. So this would be perfect for that. I would start it out probably in a big open field, and then start gradually.
Go from the screw goes in with a pointed part first, right?
Right.
So start with the easy part.
And then just gradually start doing more and more brush and more elevation. And I think that'd be pretty easy to put together, actually.
What do you think, Eric? Do you think that that would be something NDPTC would want to participate in? Some kind of a, we're just imagining it here at the table, but why not? Think of a exercise, a joint exercise, of course with Mike helping us out here, but there's other equipment that wants to come into the game as well. And think of a half day somewhere in the field and just see what this is all about.
A lot of what we need for our training courses are real event case studies, right? To show the first responders nationwide that this technology can be used for their job, right? So I think it'd be very useful.
Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, some communities on the mainland have had local people that they feel comfortable with, that they ask to come out and bring their drone with them to help in that, to bridge that gap and show the use. And it's something that would have to take place here where there is an incident and, hey, can you guys come out and bring something, and we'll put in a TFR, and we'll do the NOTAM, an emergency COA, whatever's required to be able to use the drone in that area. We'll work to deconflict with manned aircraft if they're in the area. I mean, those are all doable things, and these assets are complementary to one another. One of the incidents that had occurred well over a year ago, actually about a year ago this time, was a young man who was on Stairway to Heaven and by himself fell. Nobody found him. Family reached out to us. Hey, can you help? Can you get somebody out there? And we saw how the helicopters were trying to search the area. Because the mountains were vertical, it was extremely difficult to look down into some of those areas. So, it was one of these things that, beyond the Tacloban typhoon that we've talked about before, that was the impetus for us building search and rescue drones, and that particular incident was, hey, if we had some of these types of platforms and we could put them in there, in closer look, maybe we would have a better chance of trying to find somebody. And, saving one life, I mean, one life, then these things sell themselves 1,000 times over.
That sounds like you've defined a use for the island of Lanai. We have a fairly wide open area, fairly unpopulated by airplanes, and a variety of coastline, inland, interior, and transition in between. What a perfect place to spend this half day, or now it's turning into probably 2 days. It's going to fly over and fly back. So, Eric, we're talking about a program here for NDPTC to do real, live field demonstrations and start learning this stuff at that level. And
my partner George Purdy, he's over there on Lanai. He's a firefighter at the airport there. He's been working disaster exercises with the state airports and trying to incorporate drones. And we've actually even amongst ourselves talked about, why don't we just go out there and map the whole island and just get out there and do it. So, and put some of this technology to the test and just see what we can do when we bring some of the community together here locally. You talked about Nick Turner, Chris Bays, there's a bunch of other great people, Tim Larima on the Big Island. Jonah Saul is another great drone operator and stuff here. There's a bunch of great people that are really interested in doing some really good with drones too, and bringing them into the search and rescue, the stuff for the fire department, police, and even back to DLNR too. There's a lot of need for that, and a lot of work that Nick's been doing too, supporting the state, throughout the various islands. And
what the equipment is available here through you and through others that are around here is cutting edge. This is leading edge type technology. It's not. This is something that this particular piece of equipment right here, and what you're going to show us after the break, is totally at the leading edge of this type of technology. So we'll talk about that after we get back from this break, and we'll see you in about a minute, folks.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on ThinkTech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on ThinkTech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you center stage.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. I'm host of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, which is our flagship show, which plays 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. And the supporters of that show are Hawaii Energy Policy Forum and Hawaii Energy. And luckily enough, we have representatives of both of them right here today to tell you more about what they think about the show. Sharon Moriwaki at my left is co-chair of Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, and she goes first. Sharon?
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. I'm so glad that we have this Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. This was 2 years ago when we started this, and we have continued it because it's so important, and there's so many developments happening across the state. And we hope you'll tune in every Wednesday, 4 to 5. It's wonderful.
And Ray is Hawaii Energy. Ray, what is your thought about the same subject?
Well, I agree completely with Sharon that we are talking about every Wednesday, 4 to 5. We talk about some of the most important subjects that are affecting the islands now and into the future. Energy, clean energy, we need it. We often run into new ideas that we had not thought about before. We did just today, and I think we're going to have more of that in the future. So come on down and watch us 4 to 5 on Wednesdays, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see you then. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on ThinkTech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m.
Here we are, folks, Friday afternoon, downtown Honolulu. Ted Ralston again with our show Where the Drone Leads on ThinkTech Hawaii. And if you watched at the first segment, you noticed we had a significant fixed-wing drone here, actually a hybrid, at the table, and now that's flown away and it's been replaced by another brand new system just arrived. And the first thing they do when they arrive in the islands, they show up on our show. And let's have Mike Elliott describe to us what this piece of equipment is.
So, like I said earlier, you know, one of the impetuses getting involved in, I guess, the drone business was the whole thing about search and rescue, and it was a driving force was that like typhoon in Tacloban a few years back. And I have family, my wife's family's from the Philippines, and it was how do you empower people locally to do search and rescue on their own? And there was a national response. I work at PAC Fleet, and I've worked there for 8 years. I know how I've been in the military for 23 prior to that. In the first few days is just us showing up. It's not us doing anything. It's us just getting there and setting ourselves up so that we can go do something. And that's how we operate. So there's a period of time there where locals are completely on their own. So we thought, well, why don't we try to build something that meets the demand for the search and rescue community, fire, police, and others. And what we did was we came up with, it's a carbon fiber monocoque airframe. It's weatherproof. We have a strobe system on here because that was one of the things, you know, just visibility at range, another great thing to have. We developed a gimbal system, a T-gimbal system, and one of the things in talking to police, fire, and others was I need to be able to see at range. When I'm at altitude, that's great, but the cameras that are like on a Phantom 3 or others, they're a fixed focal length and they're not able to zoom in on anything. Also, hey, I need to see in the dark. I need to see, I'm looking for people. I'm looking for heat.
You're taking user requirements and folding them back into the design, which is the first time that's really ever happened.
So
prior to this, it's been all reapplication.
It's been a modification of existing technology, and then they fly. You see a fire department flying a Phantom 3, and it's like, yeah, that's great because it really doesn't have everything you really want. Doesn't have the flight time. So we're with the battery that's going to be in the final version of this, we'll probably be able to squeak around 45 minutes of flight time, which is pretty phenomenal for a drone this size. The IR camera is made from one of our partners, who's currently Joel from IR Distro. And this is actually a radiometric one, which is programmable for temperature. And so you can put in there 98.6 and actually will show in a different color. So I highlighted this with some folks the other day with our dogs and my wife, and the dogs are sitting there and my wife's there. Well, she's showing up as orange, but the dogs are still just black and white because they're a different temperature. So you can find these pinpoint, when you're looking for somebody, especially dense foliage, when you're flying over, you don't see much of anything. You flip over to IR or FLIR type system. Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. One of the test events we did in showing this was go to altitude, switch over to the IR camera, start searching the area, and look for those little hot spots where people
Mike,
are.
if I can interrupt for a moment, what you're describing is the real operations, the real translation of this technology at the desk level into an operational suite of knowledge and training and capabilities. So Eric, turning to you again, here's another example of what's coming at us, and it's so different from what we've seen before, and it's the cutting edge.
Yeah.
So once again, I challenge you in a friendly way that the NDPTC training has to have some way to stay ahead of this stuff and incorporate, as soon as it exists, this kind of frame of thinking into the training. So there's probably some common aspect of training that would underlie all of this. And as the technology comes up, certain aspects of that training will have to be highlighted in a different way. For example, just take something like this. This is not an insignificant piece of equipment. This is a serious investment, and it's you wouldn't want to lose this. You wouldn't want to have it contribute to the problem.
But the thing is, one of the things that was a driving force for us was also cost factor. Over the past year, we've seen a lot of companies who've come out and, hey, we've got a drone for you, and trying to sell them off to these different communities back on the mainland or other places. And they're in the $250,000, $300,000 range, and we equate that to buying
$250,000 or $300,000 going to a community fire department or something
sheriff's
like this?
department, fire department.
Lots of luck.
And they buy one. And it's like buying a Ferrari or something, and you're not gonna want to get it dinged up or take it out on a rainy day, or and there was a community in California that lost one in a lake, and they actually sent the dive team looking for it. I don't know why. It's too late. It's done.
It's all done, right?
But you're less likely to want to put this thing into harm's way when the price factor is really high. So we're looking at around $25,000 ground station that we're building a custom ground station for this also. And then our thought is that if you can keep the price factor low and you get these distributed and you have numbers of them, you really don't care. And if you lose one, you didn't lose a person, you didn't lose a helicopter, you didn't put somebody at risk. I mean, this is a tool to go into harm's way when you need to. And that's what we were looking at. So people weren't looking at the price as a, well, will I use it or should I do that? And we didn't want that to be one of the driving factors.
So you hit upon one of the most important things here. That's the socialization and the change in the socialization of the work structure and the workflow and the command and control and this sort of thing in disaster operations and search operations. If you can put this in the hands of the two guys in a truck out there at the fringe, it actually turns the whole thing upside down. Now the information is relevant, is being developed right there and managed right there, as opposed to coming from central. So Mike, Ken, sorry, I'm sorry, Mike. Get you guys confused. You look so much alike. And,
I don't have a mustache.
Yeah. So how would you think of taking the incident command system or some of the more structured command systems we've got, and how would you challenge that, or how would you adjust that to account for this kind of new information becoming available in ways we've never seen before?
I think that's a very important point. This will have to integrate with all of the other tools. I was just thinking, you were mentioning Lanai,
Yeah.
and I've been on a search and rescue mission there working a dog, and I had no idea what the terrain was going to be like. Up ahead of us, we had topographic maps, but they didn't tell us what was up ahead. And if I had somebody who could tell me that, my search would have been a lot easier.
That's a prime example. Once again, talking to firefighters, they would say, hey, if I had something in the air with me as I was hiking through, and I could kind of see a broader area. And one of the stories that was relayed to us was walking past an individual that went over a cliff in a vehicle. And I think they had walked past quite a few times before they realized that that's where that person was. And I'm sure they were in a lot of pain. But if they would have had something in the air and they could have seen the area above, they would have quickly realized where this accident had occurred. They would have seen some of the damaged foliage and been able to identify, hey, they get a helicopter here, instead of circling around or just walking on foot for hours on end. So the other thing we added too, when we're talking to people, was a payload drop system. So we had some really smart people that developed a payload drop system that's on here on the back, and you can actually put a couple pound payload. So first aid, water, radio, any of that stuff, right? Because, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Oh, I got a broken leg, okay. So that you can communicate with someone who's out there. So that was something else we added to this system. We have a larger version that's just coming off the assembly line that you could do a 30 kilogram, 66 pound payload. So we're actually building a drone that is a cargo drone to be able to carry a really large payload. We're working on one for USAID for a project in Africa right now, specifically to do that, to move blood supply.
If we can go back for a minute to the discussion you made about the folks having a radio dropped to them or some other form of communication, that's exactly what the number one issue is that I think it was FEMA Task Force 1, which is in New England, was saying to us at a demonstration about 2 months ago. They said, if we could just get a cell phone or a small radio to the folks who are lost somewhere, that they can self-rescue. At the least they can self-rescue, and there could be better results than that. And they're just in communication, just being able to communicate so changes your mentality if you're the person at risk, that's a really useful function. So dropping them, you could drop 5 cell phones off this thing. And
we were at the event up at Manoa a while back and stuff, and they had one of the the food packets the USAID has, the little orange bag and everything. Yeah. We're like, oh, you drop one of these. So, and one of the cons out of that came another idea. It's like, why couldn't we use that payload drop wrench and individually drop them? You see somebody, drop one, drop one, drop one, and you just start cycling through. So, all these ideas kind of came out of, once again, requirements or problem sets that the search and rescue community has, things that they'd like to tackle, and an area where maybe helicopters usually are few and far between, but if you can work out a program where you're operating in separated airspace and in communication with manned aircraft, easily employ drones to solve a lot of these problems.
That'd be cool. Once again, we talked about Lanai as a place that comes to a lot of our minds for a place to do that. And I keep turning back to my friends at NDPTC saying, it's what's starting to appear here is that as fast as this is rolling, it would be really interesting for NDPTC to actually lead the way and generate the exercises that may not establish policy, but let the people in the exercises establish policy through what they're doing. But the most important thing is to get the ICS system to adopt and adapt to this kind of changing information.
I don't know any search manager who would turn this down.
There you go.
I can think of probably 200-300 missions where this would have been very appropriate. That I've been on. And so integrating it's like integrating all the other resources. We work together well with dogs and rescue operations like the Honolulu Fire Department with their helicopters. So integrating it and figuring out how to maximize the benefit, use it as a force multiplier. Like I was talking about on Lanai with the dogs, if we had communications with a drone operator who could tell us where we were heading or where we shouldn't be heading, it would have been very helpful.
Yeah. So we got to figure out how to construct some kind of an exercise like that in that environment, and who we would bring into it, when we want to do it, and figure out how we would get this sponsored. So with the three of you, whichever one has the best ideas there, stand up. Let's figure out how to do that.
I think we can work something out here in the very, very near future.
Okay, that's good.
For disaster, for disaster, the Marine Corps training area at Bellows, we've done a lot of disaster exercises out there prior to the
to the real disaster.
Yeah, well, we practiced quite a bit out there, and there's all kinds of terrain. There's old bunkers. We have a couple rubble piles. So, and there's some outside. Fantastic place. Once we graduate from the grass and the woods, that'd be a perfect place.
We probably have to think of some way to be associated with Makani Pahili, which is the annual exercise in June, but not conflict with that. That's a fairly well-structured thing. It's probably all planned out for this year anyway, I'm guessing. We can talk to Doug Main and see what he thinks, but something in conjunction with that, maybe a week before or something like that, that's a little more experimental, where this type of equipment and others that might, including dogs, including whatever else people are thinking about, come into the picture, set some targets out there, and run multiple scenarios in 1 hour intervals or something like that, but also have the incident command system present so we can challenge and stress that system as much as we can.
Yeah. So one of the, and once again, talking to the firefighters, I didn't realize there were 83 fire stations on this island, on Oahu alone. I didn't know there were that many. So if you think about it, in various, say you had something in various sizes and you had a major hurricane hit the islands, well, the airport's going to be shut down because most of those aircraft are, first of all, they're going to leave. If they can't leave, they're going to be in the hangars. If they're not, they're going to be
35 knots, they're done.
They're
right?
destroyed, and they're just laying on their side. So what are you going to fly? What's initially available? Nobody's coming from the mainland anytime soon. So once again, we're kind of on our own. And you know, if you had all these fire stations, say for example, that had something available to them, and they could get airborne and communicate back with civil defense, rapidly civil defense could put together the picture of what it is that they have, what they're looking at. Because initially they're isolated and they don't know. So all these inputs start to feed a picture, and then that tailored resource management piece that civil defense can actually get people out to where they need to go to restore services, you know, water, power, roads washed out, get a crew, you know, they can start to meter out those finite resources in a more logical manner. But you know, the fire stations could be that first line of response with you know, systems like this or others reporting from their local location, vice walking out the front door once the the hurricane's gone through.
And that would help in help the manufacturing side of the house, which you represent to a certain extent, in that the actual requirements for wind tolerance, turbulence tolerance, rain operation in the rain.
Well, like I said, we built this one as, I mean, it's not weather proof, it's weather resistant. I mean, obviously, you know, but it can fly in the rain. And we're actually wanting to assemble and build these here in Hawaii on Lanai. So that's something I'm talking with my partners. We've got a facility over there that we're working to build out. We just recently applied for a technology manufacturing grant, and we're doing some other stuff where we want to actually employ people here in Hawaii and maybe be able to assemble this and ship these out worldwide.
You know, there's another side of this that's interesting. There's a action and a move in Congress right now to do two things: to add the definition STEM and education to the domain otherwise referred to as recreation for a category of non-commercial UAV operation, to accelerate the understanding and the capitalization on this technology in various forms such as this. There's a second move in Congress associated with generating sort of a TFR type relief from the standard air management requirements under disaster conditions. A more easy way to get operating and get coordinated with the fixed wing and speed that whole operation up so that UAVs can find their way into the disaster operations, disaster management quicker than they can today.
Right, and but it's something to be, you have to practice to. And that comes right back to what you guys, you know, are talking about what we need to do is it's something that you practice to so that when it does happen, you've already established some procedures, you know how things are going to play out, and you know, you've done the airspace deconfliction and what channel are we talking on, and you know, those things have already been done. So you just go and you do it. It can't be you know, day of, hey, call those guys up, come on out here. It's, you know, it would grind to a halt pretty quickly.
And in a lot of respects, doesn't that sort of thing, Eric, represent sort of a real transition from the NDPTC training, which has been basically desk-based training. Now we're talking about operational issues, which immediately, if you couldn't deconflict the airspace, for example, you can't fly, can't operate. So that becomes something that you really have to have almost a scenario-based practice, so you understand how to communicate, you understand the difficulties of dealing with a remote air traffic management site versus a incident command site. And those things aren't trainable really sitting at a desk. Those things are, my guess is, have to be scenario-based training of some kind. So we're really increasing your scope. Carl, Kim, are you watching?
Yes, we're kind of moving towards some exercise type course.
You guys are internally?
Yeah, we're looking at some of these other tied to social media, tied to UAVs, you know, because this is the new technology.
And here in Hawaii, we're going to have unmanned underwater vehicles as well. There's some, Brian Bingham and the guys at UH have some of that going on today. So coordinating these activities, it seems like there's no end of incredible responsibility and opportunity for NDPTC to stand up and take the lead here, right here in Hawaii. And you got the most, the cutting edge equipment, the cutting edge thinking right here in the studio, let alone in Hawaii.
So, you know, I've said it and I'll say it again, you know, when it comes to, you know, with the university system here, with gentlemen that are sitting right here at the table, with what we're trying to do in manufacturing, there's no reason that Hawaii can't be the Kitty Hawk of the Pacific when it comes to drone technology, and that we just spread this through, you know, the rest of the world. We just need to take charge of this industrial revolution, really, that's facing us right now, and realize what it is, and get ahead of it, and start really planting that seed now. So the legislature has a lot of great bills that are out there right now that very much support a lot of this stuff, and then there's a few that are really on the fringe that you know, don't make a lot of sense. They're actually a hindrance. This is very much a sunrise industry, and the best thing they can really do is to kind of back off, stay out of the way. These things have an excellent safety record compared to any other that's been introduced in the past 20, 30, I don't know, 40 years. You know, no deaths, no serious bodily injury, no serious property damage has occurred. And you know, you can't say that about a lot of other new stuff. There's a lot of stupid people doing dumb stuff, and you know, I'll say that, and yeah, there are. But that is slowly whittling its way down as people become more knowledgeable.
There's another side of that that's interesting, and we're here, you and I are occupying the conversation here, but just one more comment in that regard. The whole aspect of certification is going to start showing up this year. There's going to be certification of airmen or people to operate drones, and there's going to be the certification standards called TSOs for the equipment itself. And the standard that's going to, the style of the standards will be what are called consensus-based standards. That's where the leading industry manufacturers and such get together, decide what's really going to work, what's really going to separate safe and reliable operation from random accident-prone operation, and that will become the standards that all these systems have to meet. And I think, Mike, you guys are leading the way there with the way you're working from the user requirements back in, and then I'm assuming there's weatherproofness built in here and other forms of reliability. 1,000 hours on the Firefly we saw earlier. Yeah. So it's starting to happen. In industry standards, because they make sense.
Right, and they're doing it on their own. That's the thing. Industry is doing this on their own. They don't need, you know, government involvement. I mean, these folks are doing this stuff on their own every single day. They're the ones that are the innovators. They're the ones that are creating these standards. They're the ones that are working towards better reliability and solving all these problems.
So what we need to do is figure out how to take that conversation and use it in a really intelligent way to influence and help the legislators who are working on these various bills you're mentioning to get the right angle and the right slant and the right orientation on moving forward here. So I think that anyone watching this show and all of us have the obligation to look at the 14 bills that are in there that are dealing with drones or UASs and apply incredible intelligence and creativity to that to make sure we get this driven in the right direction.
Definitely. Let's, like I said, let's build the opportunity here in Hawaii to turn this into an industry.
And we have NDPTC in Hawaii right here. And we have
do the
Ken
training.
And his knowledge of 20 years of search and rescue with dogs on lanai. And so it's all right here, folks. And so we're going back to the beginning, once again, taking this very experience, this totally leading edge equipment that you're providing, and we got some older stuff here that comes out of the military that fits in the game as well in some way. And there's other systems that are out there that we haven't got here yet. We'll bring the dogs on the show sometime, Ken. But we need to think of how that turns into, in fact, maybe that's what the legislature could do. Sponsor a Hawaii state-sponsored field day of some kind, bringing all this together. That would be the most useful.
We talked about doing that on the night. George and I have mentioned that, you know, we do, like I said, with folks on foot, dog teams, drone team. Nobody knows where the person or persons are. They're just in here in some area. Go and see what happens. And then you kind of do some hybrids of that, the communication piece that you talked about. So the drone helps maybe the dog team and the guys on foot, you know, and quickly get to somebody. We drop down the radio. Oh, hey, we better bring, you know, they need, there's a diabetic. We better bring some insulin. I mean, that's not a common thing that, you know, a first responder, a firefighter is going to have in his pocket or carry with him. Or we could drop it from the drone. You know, we could put it on there, fly it right to him, and drop it to him.
There's no reason Lanai couldn't do that 24/7 and 365. That could be the thing.
Private property.
Exactly, right.
Property.
And it's a very open mindset.
Yeah.
Yep.
And George is leading the way over there for us.
George
He's been
Purdy,
working,
shout out to George Purdy.
yeah,
He's been a fantastic
he's doing a great
supporter
job
here all
working
along.
with Paloma Lanai,
Yep.
Larry Ellison's folks out there, you know, working at the airport and stuff, and trying to integrate, you know, like I said, drones into some of the disaster exercises. You know,
So, you know,
yeah.
well, this is very exciting. We do have a time limit. They're going to get the hook in a minute here. But I think that we really need to take this conversation and pictures this equipment and take this experience we've had today, just among ourselves, and really transport that to the senators and the legislators who are involved with looking at the legislation going forward, and give them a script to work from, and push this thing forward, push this integrated approach forward with NDPTC, with people with experience such as Ken, with the equipment we've got here. And not get caught in the backwash. We've got to push this thing forward in a really interesting way. So I would like to say that you and I, let's all four of us do that. Write up a script of what would take, what the state should sponsor and support in moving forward here, that would most greatly affect the quality of life to the people in Hawaii, and the job opportunities and the future business growth that would occur here. And of course, along the way, search and rescue happens, and along the way, crop management happens, beach erosion management happens,
Exactly.
all these things happen, and training becomes the center of it all, right down the street from us here at NDPTC. Okay, we will be closing in a minute here, but I would like to thank you guys all so much. Eric,
Thank you.
as usual, for coming on, and Ken, first timer. Mike, reaching across the table here. Thanks for bringing your new friends. And when you get new UAVs, and where do they go first after they arrive at the airport? Right here on the show.
All right.
Right.
Can
All
do
right.
that. Can do
That
that.
sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
And give us a few words about what you'd like the people to take away from our conversation today.
Just George, my wife, and I, we very much see a future here in Hawaii where there's an opportunity, like you said, for this next generation of technology, the next industrial revolution. And it really is going to take some vision and foresight for folks to realize that we can actually design, build, program software, and do that stuff right here in Hawaii. Agriculture is not going to come back in any form or fashion to be the job of choice for Hawaii. Most other folks, like I, for years, I mean, federal government, state government, or in the tourism or service industry. So, we want to try to create some high-paying jobs in the tech industry.
This is a pathway to that. So
I think so. So we just need that opportunity to push that forward. We're already working towards that, and the state has some programs to help us.
Ken, can you say a few words? A first timer coming on the show?
I want to get this in the hands of the first responders now.
Okay,
I don't want
I like that. Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
at a few words.
This has
All
to
right.
get out, the technology and what we've been discussing, even during the breaks. I would like to use this at my job tomorrow.
Okay, and then Ken, you're going to train. Eric, you're going to train Ken how to do this tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we really see this UAV technology as the next generation of training for first responders.
Okay, and with that, folks, we'll all positively influence our legislators to move forward in a positive way, and we'll see you next Friday on the show once again. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm IC Davidson. Thanks for tuning in to ThinkTech Hawaii. One of the things that we do here, or the thing that we do here, is promote civic engagement in Hawaii. What does that mean? We want to talk about things that people want to hear about, and we want you to engage us and be part of that conversation. One of the ways that you can do that is by joining in during our live show via Twitter. How do you do that? Well, you get on the interwebs and get Twitter, get an account, and mention us if you have a question. What you'll do is you tune into our show live, tweet us questions, and our hosts and guests will address them accordingly. It's really easy, it's really fun, and I think that your participation in what we're doing here will help us continue the dialogue on very important issues that we're trying to cover. Sustainability, clean energy, you name it, we're on top of it. We want you to be part of what we're doing, because together we'll be able to make things change. Thank you for watching ThinkTech Hawaii, thinktechhawaii.com, weekdays 12 to 5 p.m. That was weird.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland. I talk about things of interest and importance to those of us who live here in the Hawaiian archipelago, the most isolated landmass on planet Earth. Things like climate change and local politics and other things that are